guys, how's it going? So the Mario Advance series, a bit of a weird series for the Game Boy Advance. Although of course it's just the NES and the SNES games ported to the GBA, but I feel like these games added a lot, story-wise and gameplay-wise, and to be honest, I'm feeling really nostalgic for these games right now. Kinda stupid, but I've been taking my Game Boy Advance to work and man, the Game Boy really helps the day just fly by. But anyway though, I would say these games mean a lot to me. I used to play them all the time back in the day, in the back of the car, in school, in church. I'll take my fucking Game Boy with me everywhere and just like play these games. And I figure why not do a little bit of a deep dive, talk about the differences between the Game Boy Advance port and of course the original consoles, what the games add and take away, and just, I don't know, review the whole thing. But I guess, enough bullshit, let's get started.
We'll be right back with more SpongeBob on Friday Night Nicktoons.
Game Boy Advance. Console quality gaming anywhere.
Thank you. Let's dive into more SpongeBob on Friday Night Nicktoons.
Now, before we go in depth about the games, I just want to talk about the original ports for a second. Now, I would say most of my generation has played them all, and of course, the Game Boy Advance. However, I would say most people have discovered these games on the NES or the SNES. Now, the one hot take I have is that these two games specifically are, of course, based off of the SNES port, the Mario All-Stars port. And I would say it's kind of a shame that they took away the original colors. I mean, of course, they had to fucking up the contrast because it's on a small screen. But I would say it kind of loses some of the charm. And yeah, that's really the only hot take I have. But it's actually kind of nice and convenient having these games on a portable, and believe it or not, it was actually kind of huge back in the day. Like imagine bringing, I don't know, an Xbox Series S or a PS5 game on the go. That's kind of what it was like back in the day, I guess. I don't know, but I just want to talk about the original ports for a second. Either way, I guess back to the video. Now, Super Mario 3, one of my favorite games on the Game Boy Advance back in the day. I mean, bit of a tangent, but I remember when my dad took me to GameStop to pick this thing up, just playing it in the back of the car. I don't know, but I have a lot of nostalgic memories with this game. Either way, what's not to say about this game? It's an ultimate classic. Whether it's on the NES, SNES, Game Boy, whatever this game is on, it's going to be fucking great. Though there are a few notable differences on the Game Boy Advance port. She could play as Luigi. There's a cutscene that introduces the story, and I would say I kind of like that. Because when it comes to most early 2D Mario games, you just kind of jump in with no context, just go save Peach. Well, with the Game Boy Advance ports, you get a little bit of context to it. I like it. How can I talk about the Mario 3 port without bringing up the e-reader? Now, although maybe a useless peripheral for the Game Boy Advance, it adds a lot to this game. You get 20 more levels, a couple of new items, and it's kind of weird how you use it. But you kind of just scan a card on an e-reader, and shit, these cards are hard to come by nowadays. And from what I heard, the e-reader is very hard to use. It does not scan cards very well. Plus, this thing looks like a giant tumor attached to the Game Boy Advance. But either way, I would say when it comes to this game specifically, it adds a decent amount of content compared to the main game. But as I've stated before, the game is great, it's fine. The only hot take I have is that it takes away from the original colors, but other than that, I love this game. I guess we'll move on to Yoshi's Island.
We'll be right back to the Fairly Odd Parents on Nickelodeon.
Look, Mom, he's cute.
Yoshi's back, and now with his targeting system, he aims to please. Yoshi's Island, only for Game Boy Advance. Rated E for everyone.
Now we're back to the Fairly Odd Parents on Nickelodeon.
Yoshi's Island, a classic game for the Super Nintendo. The only thing that irks me is that why did they subtitle this with Super Mario World 2? I don't know, it's kind of clickbaity, but this is an overall great game. I mean, again, what exactly can I say about this game that has been said already? The only downside is nothing really changed on the Game Boy Advance port. They just added one extra level per world, and of course it's a bit harder and longer. Pause. But yeah, to be honest, not really too much to say about Yoshi's Island. It's just an overall classic. It's just on the Game Boy Advance now, and it's on the smaller screens, of course. It's gonna be a bit, I would say, brighter than the Super Nintendo version, but I would say that adds to the game's charm. It was kind of meant to have, you know, like a children's Crayola style. I don't know what the proper word is, but you kind of get the vibe of what the game is supposed to be, and I feel like the bright contrast adds to it. But either way, enough about Yoshi's Island. Let's just move on to Super Mario 2.
Super Mario is back. He's blasting through worlds where no one has ever been. He's taking on enemies no one else dares. This time Mario pops up power wherever he goes, so he's bigger and badder than ever before. You've never seen creatures like these. You've never had an adventure like this. It's everything you've dreamed of and worlds more. It's Super Mario 2, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
Super Mario 2, I think we already know what it is. Blah blah blah, it's support for Doki Doki Panic, blah blah blah, it's Japan only. You basically know the facts about the game. However, when it comes to the Game Boy Advance port, it feels like they put a lot of hard work into this. Like of course, playing Mario 2 on the NES feels a lot different because, you know, slower technology, came out in the 80s. But playing this game on the Game Boy Advance just feels different. Of course, there's voice lines. There's jiggle physics. Everything's a bit bigger and longer. Pause. Of course, a bit brighter. Like, not gonna lie, I kind of want to play the GBA version of Mario 2 rather than the NES's because, I mean, I don't know, it's fucking portable. It's better. And just like the others, you also get a cutscene that sort of explains why you're playing the game. Overall, there's not too much to say. It's a great port. Other than that, the game is great. I mean, of course, there's jiggle physics, voice lines, brighter screen. You guys already know what it is, but let's just move on to the last but not least, Super Mario World. So Super Mario World, it's very similar to Yoshi's Island where there's very little change. I mean, of course, Dragon Coins are easier to get. The game's, I would say, a tad bit easier. It's just Super Mario World on the Game Boy Advance. And of course you get another cutscene. And I definitely gotta say, all these games are great, but it seems like they really put a lot of effort into the NES games like Mario 3 and 2. Like, those games seem they put a lot of work into, but all the SNES games, they just like ported the ROM file to the GBA cartridge and just like sold it. Either way, all these games are great. I love them to death. All classic games. And yeah, what's your favorite 2D Mario game? Tell me down in the comments, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.